All right. Whoa. Good morning, everybody. Morning. Everybody awake yet? Yes. Thank you, Joe. I had to make sure that there were donuts here. So, hey, actually, when we started planning this, you two were my targets, and this was the first session that I knew that I wanted at this entire event. So I so appreciate the two of you being here, two of my favorite people. So if you don't know me, I'm Michele Goldsmith. I'm the Vice President, General Manager of Sounding Straight Only, which Mary and I did not introduce ourselves before. But I've got two men on stage. Between the two of them, I think they manage, somewhere close to $7 billion worth of business. It's a privilege to have them here. We have Jason Lippert, who is the CEO of Lippert. Lippert, is it Lippert Industries or Lippert Components? I think
we go by Lippert. It's fine. It's good.
Yeah. Okay. And then Bill Yeargin, who you met in the last session, who's the CEO of CorrectCraft. And I can't think of two better men to talk about culture. And my job today is to kind of prompt them and then get out of the way. And that's what I intend to do. So I'm going to be on the side here. I'm going to give you a question, and the two of you discuss it, move around, have a conversation, and we will go from there. So as we thought about culture, the first thing that I thought of is what Simon Sinek says. What is your why? You know, what was your impulse? How did you start? What was the aha moment that said, hey, culture has to change it. I need to build it at my company. What prompted it? I think I was there when you were going through some of this, and you had read a book that really inspired you.
Yeah, it was, for me, it was a lot of prayer, trying to figure out where we were going, in our company's future. There was a book, there was a TED Talk, but ultimately it came down to what Bill talked about in his session, throughout his session, was just impact. How do you have real impact and impact people's lives? So once we discovered that, once our team and I discovered that was, purpose was better than just waking up every day to make parts and make money, we started really driving and diving into that and making that, our cultural foundation is, how do we impact people? And we do it through, we found that we do it through really healthy leadership, leaning into values and making sure people are aligned to values. And if you're not aligned to our values, then you can't stick around at our company. And just holding people accountable. I mean, that's what we do every day. And ultimately, the community's taken notice, our suppliers and customers have taken notice, and we're just trying to draw more people into what healthy culture and great impact looks like.
Yeah. So your why was?
Our why is to have impact. We wake up every morning
and
to
have impact.
Have impact on people's lives. And if we lead people well at the business every day, then we feel that they'll go home and they'll lead their families better. And we feel that that's one of the big things that's missing in our society today, is just healthy family units. So we're teaching people good leadership, and they're leading themselves well every day. And we're pushing them to lead themselves through values at work, that they're going to go home and do the same thing at home.
And you, Bill?
Well, first of all, I just want to say I have tremendous respect for Jason and Lippert and what they do. And, they're really, the gold medal winner in this area. I mean, they do a really, really good job. The book you mentioned, Start With Why, had a big impact on me. This was, 10, 15 years ago. And I was thinking of, when CorrectCraft started growing, we started making acquisitions. In my mind, I had this tagline. I was working with great teams, great brands. And I read the book, Start With Why by Simon Sinek. If you haven't read it, it's one of the foundational books, that I think you need to read as a business leader. And it hit me, that wasn't really, what our why was. So I started thinking about the idea of making life better.
Yeah.
And so, our mission we talked about earlier, building boats to the glory of God, but our why is making life better. And we want to make life better, Michele, on everybody we come in contact with. And so whether you're a retail customer and we want you to have great product, we want you to have a great Blue Mind experience on the water, whether you're a vendor, we want to pay you well, pay you on time. We want to partner with you to help you be successful, certainly our dealers, our employees. And we've even done this with competitors, oddly enough. We've held a couple of industry-wide culture summits. We've held an innovation summit. And, competitors, applied to be part of some of those things. And we've said, that's okay, because, we're going to compete with them for the sale of the boat or the engine or whatever we're selling on the boat show floor, or wherever we happen to be selling. But if we can help them with culture, we're going to make the lives better of their employees, and we're going to make the lives better of their families. And Jason said something that really resonated with me, and we talk about a lot, and I think about a lot, is I want to impact kids around the dining room table of our employees when they go home.
Yeah.
And so when our employees go home and they've been on a service trip or they've been impacted by something we're doing, I won't see the benefit of this in my lifetime, but they go home, and especially one of our service trips, and they tell their 10-year-old and 12-year-old sitting around the table about what they just were part of, and it lights a fire or sparks a flame in that 10 or 12-year-old. You don't know what their life direction is going to go. And so we just want to make life better on everybody we come in contact with.
Yeah, and I think it's played that way for both of you, because I see some of the events that you've done, and the entire families come.
Yeah.
It becomes more family and more community oriented.
Yeah, I mean, our people do about 150,000 hours of community service a year, and we do that really simply through 140 divisions that do four serving events every year, and we set up the events for them. We have resources on staff that do that, so that all people have to do is show up in any given plan or community that we're in. And again, that like Bill said, that's planting seeds with kids and families and parents. Teaching them how to live better so that they can have better impact of the people that are in their household. And, you can do that, like I said, through just practicing good values at work, teaching people what good leadership looks like. And again, if they're leading themselves really well at work for 40 or 50 hours a week, they're not going to go home and lead differently or lead outside of those values because they're just ingrained in it. So the best place to teach it is at work. We feel that government's failing our families, education's failing our families, but business can truly be a force for good. So when we say that, it's not just a tagline. It's really, there's real impact there if the leadership wants to impact, families and communities.
And that's a perfect segue, because now you've decided to do it. Now you have to implement it, and you have to get buy-in from all the way down, from Ryan Smith all the way down to the guy that's cleaning the floor in the warehouse. And for you, you've got all the different divisions that you're trying, both of you, all the different divisions that you're buying. So why don't you talk about how, once you made the decision, how you went about implementing it?
You start with clarity. Clarity. These are our values. This is what's important to us. We've done a lot of acquisitions. I know Jason has too. We've never had any trouble with any of our acquisitions getting people on board with our culture, because what's there not to like? We're going to invest in you. We're going to take care of you. I tell people often, I said, if you're a correct craft, learning is a big part of our culture too. So I tell people often, I say, if you're a correct craft employee and you're not learning, it's because you've chosen not to learn.
Yeah.
Because so there's not, and so creating a lot of clarity around what's important to us, and then modeling that, because people will always pay more attention to what you do than what you say. And people want to be part of it. Michele, people, we've had, like you said, zero pushback. People love being part of, something that's having a positive impact.
Yeah, but you can't tell me that there weren't some skeptics.
Well, there's always,
that it wasn't a little,
there's always
too woo-woo for them.
No, there's always skeptics, of course. But that's why you have to model it. You have to live it out and stay very clear what your values are and live it out. And people come on board. We've had no trouble. Day one, we go in an acquisition. I always show up day one and with our new company, and I talk to our employees, and we'll share. We normally do a lunch, and we say a blessing over the lunch. And that's just part of our culture. And so people will come up to me and they'll say, I've been working for 40 years. I've never been at a luncheon where they said a blessing. No, it's not always about faith, but it's just that's just part of our values. And so, and people are like, sometimes they'll be look at you a little askew, but as long as you model it and you live it out and you're consistent, they're going to come on board.
It's the execution of values is clearly the hardest thing when it comes to culture. You cannot have, a real culture that's meaningful and that's impacting people if you don't follow your values and hold people accountable. So that execution of the values is most important. I've never been in a company that didn't have values on the wall. It's the execution and making sure that people are being held accountable day in and day out. People are talking about it in their 5-minute meetings in the morning before work. They're talking about it at management meetings. They're starting a meeting with a core values moment or a leadership moment, but holding people accountable. When people act outside of the values, it's time to coach them up. And if they can't get the coaching right, then you have to move them out of the organization, because the minute you let people act or behave counter to the cultures or behave badly, and you tolerate that, you're just telling people that the values don't matter. And your whole mission to make a culture journey real goes out the window. So to me, the execution and the accountability is the most important thing. Everybody has values, but I would say 80% of them don't work in most companies. And I know, because I do listening sessions every week with hundreds and hundreds of our team members, and they tell me they come from places that they put the values on the wall and they talk about them, and they might hold a couple people accountable, but they don't hold everybody accountable.
So you implemented, you knew what your why was, and the next thing is, how do the programs evolve?
Yeah.
So I was there when you started your app.
Mm-hmm.
That was cool when that came out, and we were logging our hours of community service and the opportunities for different community service. I remember, Bill, you did your first trip and the impact that had, and it kind of snowballed. So why don't you guys speak to that?
Well, I just say,
And I asked them to stand. If you guys are uncomfortable, you're welcome to sit.
That's fine. No, so I would say that, first of all, we've been on a culture journey for just about 12 years. So, it's a series of steps, and you have to be patient. And you just, Ryan and Jeff and I and the team, we've just been diligent about taking the next step, whatever the next step is. We try not to go and accomplish everything all at once. There's a lot of thought leaders out there and a lot of ideas. And, if your company's not on a culture journey, you can't just run up and start writing ideas down and try to execute them all. Just take the next step. And for us, it started with core values. We didn't have values, so we said, we've got to have values, then we got to hold people accountable. Then it was, hey, our leaders need a different set of rules to follow than just every other team member. What do we want our leader qualities to look like? We did that. We started the serving mission to do 100,000 hours of service a year. We hired people for that, and we hired a VP of culture. We now have 20 people in our culture department. I think it's really difficult to say that you're going on a culture journey and to have a meaningful culture if you don't put resources there. Y'all have HR departments and sales departments and IT departments. You wouldn't do that with no people. But people say culture is the most important thing all the time. I've never met a leader that hasn't said culture is the most important thing. And I ask them how many people they have in culture and leadership, and the answer is usually 0. So how do you do the most important thing in the company without people that are dedicated resources? So
Wait, it gets better. It gets better.
Something I said.
Bill, same question to you.
I think
We have the quality people in the room.
So, no, Jason answered it well. I think he said one thing I'd like to just reinforce a little bit is there's a lot of culture ideas. And one of the interesting parts of my role has been actually saying no to some things, because people can throw out a zillion different ideas, and it's a lot easier to start them than it is to sustain them.
Yeah.
And we don't have 20 people. We do have a couple of people on our culture team.
We started with one.
Okay, start with one. We've got 2 currently, but what I don't want us to do is just say, hey, this is a great idea, and all of a sudden everybody's focused on this, and then that sort of fades away. I want to have a great methodology. This is our culture. We serve through, we execute our culture through service. Service to each other, service to our community, service around the world. Because we're known as a philanthropic organization, rarely a day goes by that somebody doesn't ask me for money. You probably the same thing, Jason. Rarely a day. And people want money, and I tell 99% of them no, not because they're not good causes, but we do our philanthropy through service. So we spend a lot of money, but we want to spend it in a way that our employees can go out and serve and participate.
Yeah.
And so we're very methodical, very intentional about how we do it, and we don't want to get captured. We don't want to chase all the shiny things, so.
Absolutely, it makes sense. So we're at the point that you've implemented them. They've evolved a bit. Talk to me about what the impact has been on the people that work for you. and on the community and perhaps on the industry as well. Where do you see it? I think initially, Jason, part of what you did it for was also employee retention, correct?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think, whether it's the service project, our chaplaincy program, our leadership development program, all the pouring in we do, exactly what Bill said. I mean, we've had, countless people come up to us, our leadership, and just say, hey, look, I've never worked at a company that's done this before. I'm staying here. I've never served before in my life, but I'm doing serving missions now here. I'm bringing my kids, I'm bringing my spouse. This is great. I'm never leaving this place. So, we all know that retention and low turnover is the key to a healthy business. Low turnover promotes good quality, safety. I mean, people are coming back to the business every day and bringing energy and passion. They can't do that if they're not there every day. So if you don't have a culture that's making people want to come back every day, they leave, and all your knowledge and quality, efficiency, all that stuff goes out the window. So for me, that's some of the impact. But we're out there trying to make sure other people see the message and see what we're doing. We do red carpet rollouts where we have, we had 60 people in from different companies, some competitors, some suppliers, some customers, some people that had just seen us on social media, and we just teach them about what we're doing because they see things and they want to know how to execute it. So, the teaching part is where the ripple comes in. I mean, we've got 13,000 people. We've done 75 acquisitions since my tenure here, and we touch a lot of people, but we can touch a whole lot more people if we teach other companies to do the same thing. That ripple gets a lot bigger, and we have a lot more impact and, employees' lives and their families ultimately, and then the communities that they touch and surround. So to me, that's the holy grail, is getting this out to other people. Once that light bulb goes on and they start that culture journey and they start taking steps, the light bulb never turns off. Nobody ever wants to go back and treating people poorly or not doing as good a job as you can.
I think that, Jason used the word ripple effect, and we talk about ripple impact a lot. And one of the things that we found is when we go into a community, we can change not only the organization we're going to serve, we can change the entire community. And sometimes people will even ask me, they'll say, why do you do a service trip and send out a press release on it? You're just trying to pat yourself on the back. It has nothing to do with that. We know that we have the ability to inspire others to do the same thing. Yeah. So a couple of just really quick examples. 2 years ago, we went to Monticello, Arkansas. We have a factory there. And we basically bring 100 employees to a town, and we served in a shelter for abused women and 2 orphanages in that community. And when we bring 100 people to town, I mean, these are boat builders, engineers, designers. I mean, these people that get stuff done, So we go into town, the mayor always comes out, the news people come out. So we did this project, and about 6 months later, we're on a financial call for that company. And one of our managers said, Bill, we've changed this community. And I said, his name's Sam. I said, Sam, what do you mean? He said, because when we did, all these businesses are now doing projects like this and they're helping. And he said, we've changed this community. This summer, just a few weeks ago, we were in South Carolina. A couple of our guys are here that hosted that trip. And they were just telling me literally right before this meeting that word got out, and people have been donating money to this Center for Abused Kids, and one organization donated $35,000 because they'd seen what we've done, and they've been able to buy a property next to them because, it inspires people. The ripple effects have a huge, huge impact. And as I said, particularly with that kid around the dining room table, yeah. I think when you invest in culture, you have an impact way beyond what you can even.
I'll give you a real quick story to that. We just last year we had a team member in Braden in Florida. We were doing a listening session, and she said, "I got to tell you a story." She said, "I got my core values card, my leadership quality card. I brought it home to my 12-year-old. We started talking about it at night." The values and things like that. He ended up taking it to his baseball team, and his baseball coach started talking about a value moment before every practice. And, the story stopped there. It'd be great. But, she said that the coach called and said, well, I'm also a middle school teacher. And now I do a core values moment, before every class. So you never know. Yep. I would tell you that the most impactful stories, just in the last 4 weeks, somebody's told me that they just came here and our culture and our leadership saved her life. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, I was contemplating suicide, but she said, people care around here. I have never had that before. So you never know. Just caring culture, good quality leadership, the values, it makes a difference. People quit smoking, drinking, drugs. I mean, you get those stories all the time. So one little impact at a time, it adds up. And I'll tell you what, if I stopped today, just the stories I've had this week would be enough to carry me for the next decade. So
That's awesome. It goes to that Mother Teresa quote, I can't change the world, but I can cast a stone that has a ripple throughout the ocean, right?
So I'd like to just add one more thing before we run out of time, Michele, because one of the common questions I get, and what some of you, I suspect some percentage, you probably at least a third of you are thinking is, yeah, but that all costs money. You're building a house for a homeless family, you're doing this, that costs money, right? How do we do that? And I would encourage you a couple of things. One is, don't think of it as an expense. Think of it as an investment that's got a huge, huge return. So this last summer, not this summer, summer before, I spent a week at the London School of Economics in London, England, taking a course called Passion and Profit. And their research is so interesting, and we've seen this at CorrectCraft. When you invest in culture, not only are you having all these impacts that Jason and I have been talking about on people and communities, but it actually drives better financial results for your organization. So companies that have purpose and they invest in culture, because of the way that it energizes their team and the way that it has an impact on their organization and the people they deal with, they actually have better financial results. So it doesn't cost you anything. But, and this is really, really important, if you invest in culture to get the financial results, it doesn't work. Okay? If you invest in culture because it's the right thing to do and you want to have an impact, it drives financial results. But if you think, oh wow, I heard these two CEOs and they said that if I invest in culture, I'm going to make more money. If that's your mindset, don't even bother wasting your time or money because it won't work. Because people will see through the manipulation and the hypocrisy. But if you really care and you really want to have an impact, and you're really willing to invest in culture because it's the right thing to do, it'll have a huge positive impact financial impact on your organization.
On your deathbed, you're not going to remember what revenues you had in 2025 or what your profit was on a particular product line. You're going to remember the people you helped at the end of your life. So why not invest in that?
And Bill and I were just at a conference together, and that need for human connection and community was a thread through all the conversations about AI and tech. They were used to get to the human-to-human connection and the sense of belonging, joy, and community that's needed. So the last question, because we're going to run out of time, is for the people in the audience that are running companies and are thinking, okay, I heard Bill, I'm going to have to make a bit of investment. There could be a lot of return on investment from what Jason and Bill have said. So let's start with you, Jason, but if you were going to give advice to the people in the room of how to start the journey, what are the things that you wish that you knew when you started that you'd say to them, here are the things that I wish I knew?
Yeah, I just say, so commit to starting the journey. Leadership has to be all in. Top leadership has to be all in. I hate to tell you this, if top leadership isn't in, it's probably not going to happen. You might be able to impact in pockets, but top leadership has to be bought in. The values would have been extremely helpful to me when we started our business. And then again, the holding people accountable to the values is most important. We define leadership at Lippert. We have 5 qualities, and we say this is what leaders have to exude. Most people get promoted in life because they're fast at their job, or they're knowledgeable, or they've been there for 20 years, or whatever. Pick something. None of those qualify you to be a leader. So we define leadership. You can read 1,000 books on leadership, and you get all sorts of different things. But we boil it down to 5 qualities. So holding people accountable to values and the leader qualities and just a good leadership model, and then you start taking steps, the magic starts happening. But if you're not willing to be courageous and hold people accountable and move people out of the company, sometimes they're high performers, sometimes they're 20, 25-year team members that you think know a lot or have good customer relationships or whatever excuse you've made. To Bill's point in his earlier discussion was, you've got to be courageous and move them out of the business because they're going to be toxic and impact other people and drive good people out of the business. People you need there out of the business. So that courage part, you can have the values and have the attention to all those details, but if you're not courageous and hold people accountable, you're not going to make it in a culture journey.
Thank you
Agree
for
with
that.
everything.
I agree.
Agree with everything Jason said, of course. And people ask me all the time, how do you do culture? Because it feels fuzzy. It feels like, not really sure, how to go about this. And I always give them 4 steps. Number 1, create a lot of clarity around your values. And you say, well, I know our values. We'll just write them down. Be intentional about creating clarity around your values. Number 2, find a great way to capture them. We have what we call our identity pyramid. And it starts at the top, building boats to the glory of God, making life better, people, performance, philanthropy. It goes through all of our values. So nobody in a Craft company has got any question or should have any question about what our values are. It starts out at orientation, day 1, they see it and hear it all the time. Number 3, so identify your values, find a great way to communicate. Number 3, talk about them and talk about culture and talk about your values until you're tired of talking about it and they're tired of hearing it.
And then keep talking about it.
And then keep talking about it, right? So talk about it. And then number 4, maybe the most important part is model it. Because people will watch what you do more than they'll listen to what you say. And, we go on these service trips, and honestly, there's some of our team in the room, they can vouch for this probably happily. We go on one of these service trips, I'm like the least talented people. I mean, I can bring wood, I can get you some water, I want to serve, but it's.
You can cut hair.
I can cut hair, I've tried to, yeah. But I can, I can do manual labor, but I'm not, we're bringing like boat build, really talented people. I'm not as talented as these folks. But they know that, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back at all, but they see our executive team, they see me, they're sweating and working and doing that and modeling our values. That goes a long way. And people start to realize, hey, wow, this really is important. And then, again, the ripple effect. Again, we had about 400 to 500 employees that original service trip. We only took 25 to Mexico. But when they came back, everybody's like, hey, what's going on? What's that trip about? And people were like, say things like, best few days of my life. Wow, this is impactful. Big impact.
Well, I want to thank Jason and Bill. You can catch them outside if you have questions. But before we get off the stage, Bill is retiring in April, and I promised him a gift. So
no.
I have a small gift for Bill. And I have to show you something, Bill, with this. So I'm going to bring the box out.
I didn't bring you a gift.
Oh, those.
It's
Why does
actually made in South Africa.
this make me nervous?
But I opened, this is what you call fun. I opened the box today not knowing this, and when I opened the box, it said,
Go outside.
That's
and
pretty
play.
cool.
Oh, wow.
go outside and play.
That's right.
Good.
So that is for you, and thank you for all that you
Thank
do.
you very much.
Jason, thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here. There's coffee outside.
I just want to say, I'll do you one better. If you don't have to go through Michele to get to us, you can find me on LinkedIn.
Same here.
Our mission is to help people get it, and the quicker you can get to us, and we'll put you with our team and help out any way
Same
we can.
thing. LinkedIn, easiest way to cut.
And I have one other thing for you. So thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, hey, good job.
Much respect.
I love hanging out
Much
with you.
respect.
Same.